The first thing Zerai and Zerai Adebayo heard was someone whispering that she was already dead. She died 3 weeks ago. The voice was low, casual, as if they were discussing a misplaced file. Zerai's fingers twitched against the stiff hospital sheets. Pain shot through her veins like shards of glass. Her throat burned. Her chest felt heavy, as though someone had placed stones inside her lungs. But she heard them clearly. "She's still breathing," another voice said nervously. A pause, then a cold reply. "That doesn't matter anymore." Zerai's eyelids fluttered. The world beyond them was a blur of white lights and shadowed figures. Machines beeped slowly beside her, their rhythm dragging through the silent room like a reluctant heartbeat. Her body felt wrong, heavy, weak, like it belonged to someone else. "Oh, her husband already completed the paperwork," the first voice continued. "The insurance company has confirmed the payout. Everything has been processed." "Insurance?" A long silence followed. Then a man chuckled softly. 30 years of marriage. I'd say he earned it." Something inside Zerai snapped. Her eyes flew open. The sudden movement startled the nurse standing beside her bed. The woman gasped. "Oh." Zerai sucked in a ragged breath. The air scraped down her throat like sand. Her voice came out broken. "Where is my husband?" The nurse froze. Behind her, a doctor stepped forward slowly, his face pale. "Mrs. Adebayo?" Zerai's gaze sharpened. "I asked," she whispered hoarsely, "where is my husband?" The doctor looked at the nurse. The nurse looked at the floor. And in that moment, Zerai felt something cold crawl down her spine. Something was terribly wrong. 3 hours later, Zerai sat upright in the hospital bed, staring at the television mounted on the wall. Her world shattered in silence. The news reporter spoke calmly. "A tragic loss that shocked the business community. Zerai Adebayo, co-founder of Adebayo Herbal Research Group, was declared dead after slipping into a prolonged coma caused by organ failure. Her husband, Mr. Han Ji-soo, has announced that her funeral will be held tomorrow in Seoul." Zerai's fingers tightened around the remote. Dead. Declared dead. Her funeral? Tomorrow? The screen shifted to show her husband standing before reporters. Han Ji-soo, 30 years of marriage carved into his familiar face. But the expression he wore now was not grief. It was relief. "We will honor her memory," he said solemnly. "My beloved wife fought bravely until the end." 30 years of marriage, one insurance claim, and he called her beloved on live television. If you've ever watched someone rewrite history like you never existed, this channel was built for you. Subscribe and stay, because Zerai is just getting started. Zerai felt nausea rise violently in her chest. Beloved? Her fingers trembled. The jade pendant resting against her collarbone felt suddenly warm. She had worn it for as long as she could remember. The only thing she owned when she lost her childhood memories. The only thing that had always stayed with her. And now, her husband was burying her alive. By nightfall, Zerai had forced herself out of the hospital. The nurses had tried to stop her, but there was something inside her now. A burning, defiant fury that refused to let her stay still. 30 years of loyalty, of sacrifice, of building a company together, and he repaid her by stealing her life. Zerai stood outside the towering glass building that carried the name Adebayo Herbal Research Group, her company. The cold Seoul wind whipped through the streets, tugging at her hospital coat. She walked inside. The receptionist froze when she saw her. Her eyes widened in horror. "Mrs. Adebayo?" Zerai ignored her. Her steps were slow but steady as she walked toward the private elevator. Every employee she passed stared as if they were seeing a ghost, because to them, she was one. Han Ji-soo was pouring himself a drink when the office door opened. He frowned. "I told you not to." The glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the marble floor, because Zerai was standing in the doorway, alive, pale, but very much breathing. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zerai tilted her head slightly. "Funny," she said softly. Her voice carried the sharp edge of restrained rage. I didn't know dead people could still walk. Hanjisu's face drained of color. Zerai? She stepped forward slowly. Did the insurance company ask for proof? Her eyes were burning now. Or did they just believe you when you said your wife was already buried? His lips parted. No sound came out. 30 years of memories flashed through Zerai's mind. The nights they worked together. The promises. The trust. All of it shattered like the glass beneath his feet. You declared me dead, she said quietly. Hanjisu finally moved, but instead of relief, something dark flickered across his face. Fear, then calculation. You shouldn't have come here, he said slowly. Zerai blinked. What? Hanjisu exhaled, and suddenly, he started laughing. The sound was cold, cruel. You were supposed to stay dead, he said. Zerai's stomach twisted. He walked to his desk and pressed a button on the intercom. Send them in. Her heart skipped. Jisoo, what are you doing? His smile widened. Fixing a mistake. The office doors burst open. 3 men stepped inside, large, silent. Their eyes immediately locked onto Zerai. Han Jisoo leaned back in his chair. She woke up, he said calmly. Take care of it. Zerai's blood ran cold. You're going to kill me? Han Jisoo shrugged. You're already dead. The men started walking toward her. Now Zerai turned and ran. The streets of Seoul blurred around her. Her body was still weak from the coma, but terror pushed her forward. Footsteps thundered behind her. The men were gaining. Stop running, one shouted. Zerai darted into a narrow alley, dead end. Her breath caught. The men entered slowly, smiling. Your husband paid well, one of them said. Zerai's back pressed against the wall. Her heart pounded violently. So this was it, 30 years of marriage ending in a filthy alley. One of the men pulled out a knife. Don't worry, he said. It'll be quick. A shadow moved behind them, quiet, deadly. Before Zerai could react, crack. The first man collapsed instantly. The other 2 spun around. What the? A tall figure stepped forward from the darkness. His movements were calm, controlled, dangerous. Now within seconds, 2 more bodies hit the ground. Silence swallowed the alley. Zerai stared. The man slowly turned toward her. Sharp eyes, cold, powerful, as if the darkness itself obeyed him. Then something slipped from Zerai's trembling fingers. The jade pendant. It fell onto the pavement. The man bent down and picked it up. And the moment he saw it, his entire body froze. His eyes widened in disbelief. Impossible, he whispered. Zerai frowned weakly. What? The man looked at her, really looked, like he was seeing a ghost from the past. Then he said something that made Zerai's heart stop. Zerai? She blinked. How do you know my name? The man tightened his grip on the jade pendant. His voice dropped into a quiet, dangerous tone. Because, he said, you're my fiancé. The alley smelled of rain, all blood, and rust. Zerai and Zerai Adebayo stood frozen against the wall, staring at the man who had just taken down 3 armed killers as if it were nothing more than a brief inconvenience. Her breathing was ragged. Her heart still pounded violently in her chest, but the words he had just spoken echoed louder than the chaos around them. You're my fiancé. Zerai blinked slowly. I think, she said hoarsely, you've mistaken me for someone else. The man didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stared at the jade pendant in his palm, the same pendant Zerai had worn her entire life, the one thing that had survived the blank void of her lost childhood memories. His fingers tightened around it slightly. Then he lifted his gaze. The air around him felt different, heavy, dangerous, like the quiet stillness before a storm. You dropped this, he said. He stepped forward and held the pendant out to her. Zerai hesitated before taking it back. The jade felt warm against her skin. Familiar, comforting. Yet the man's reaction to it sent a strange unease crawling through her stomach. How do you know my name? She asked. He studied her face carefully, as if measuring something only he could see. Because, he said slowly, I've been searching for you for 22 years. Zerai stared at him. That's impossible. The man tilted his head slightly. His dark eyes were sharp, calculating. You don't remember anything before the age of 8, he said calmly. Zerai's breath caught. Her fingers tightened around the pendant. How do you know that? He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced at the 3 unconscious men on the ground. And then he reached into his coat and pulled out his phone. Within seconds, headlights appeared at the end of the alley. Black cars, 3 of them. The doors opened and several men stepped out, all dressed in black, all armed, all moving with disciplined precision. Zerai stiffened. Her instincts screamed danger. The men approached quickly but stopped a few feet behind the stranger. They bowed slightly. Boss. Zerai's stomach dropped. Boss? The man turned toward them. Clean this up, he said. His voice was calm, unbothered, as if ordering someone to dispose of bodies was no different from asking for coffee. Yes, boss. The men immediately began dragging the attackers away. One of them glanced briefly at Zerai, then quickly looked away. Fear flickered across his face. Zerai noticed, and her gaze slowly returned to the man standing in front of her. You're Mafia? She asked quietly. He looked at her again. There was no shame in his expression, no denial, only truth. My name is Kwon Tae-hyuk, he said. The name hit the air like thunder. Even Zerai, who had spent most of her life buried in research and business work, knew it. Kwon Tae-hyuk, the Shadow King of Seoul's underworld, a man rumored to control half the criminal networks in Korea, a man people spoke about in whispers, and right now he was standing in front of her, looking at her like she was something he had been waiting for his entire life. Zerai swallowed. This has to be some kind of joke. Tae-hyuk didn't smile. You confronted your husband tonight, he said. Zerai froze. You discovered he declared you legally dead. Her throat tightened. No, you ran when he sent men to kill you. Her hands slowly clenched. How do you know all this? Tae-hyuk slipped his hands into his coat pockets. Because I've been watching him. Zerai's eyes widened. What? Tae-hyuk stepped closer, close enough that Zerai could see the faint scar along his jaw. You married Han Ji-soo 30 years ago, he said. You built the Adeyemi Herbal Research Group together. Zerai's heart hammered. You slipped into a coma 3 months ago. His voice hardened slightly. And 3 weeks later, he declared you dead. A bitter laugh escaped Zerai's throat. Congratulations, she said quietly. You know my life story. Tae-hyuk's gaze darkened. No. His voice lowered. I only know the parts that happened after you disappeared. Zerai frowned. I disappeared? The wind blew through the alley again. Cold. Sharp. Tae-hyuk pulled something from inside his coat. A folded photograph. He handed it to her. Zerai hesitated before taking it. The picture was old, the edges slightly worn. It showed 2 children standing under a massive tree. A little girl and a little boy. The girl had a jade pendant around her neck. Zerai's breath stopped. Her fingers trembled. That's her younger self. The boy standing beside her looked about 10 years old, his expression serious, protective, his hand holding hers tightly. Zerai looked up slowly. Tae-hyuk was watching her carefully. That girl, he said quietly, is you. Zerai's head spun. No, I don't remember that. Tae-hyuk nodded. I know. Then how do you? Because I was there. Silence swallowed the alley. Zerai stared at him. You're saying that boy was you? Tae-hyuk didn't answer. He simply reached into his pocket again. This time he pulled out something small, a thin silver ring. The jade stone embedded in it matched the color of her pendant exactly. Zerai's heart skipped. What is that? Tae-hyuk's voice softened slightly. A marriage contract. Zerai blinked. What? Our families arranged it when we were children. Zerai stared at him like he had lost his mind. That's insane. Tae-hyuk shrugged slightly. It was tradition. Her head shook slowly. No, I would remember something like that. You were 8 when you disappeared. His words fell like stones. Zerai's voice faltered. Disappeared? Taehyuk's gaze hardened. You were kidnapped. She survived 30 years not knowing who she really was. And the moment she finds out, everything changes. If stories like this are what you come to YouTube for, you're exactly where you belong. Subscribe. The world tilted beneath Zerai's feet. What? You vanished on the night your family was attacked. Her breathing became shallow. My family? Taehyuk stepped closer. They were the greatest healers in Asia. Zerai felt the jade pendant grow warm against her skin. They protected ancient medical knowledge that powerful people would kill to possess. His voice dropped lower. Your bloodline is older than most kingdoms. Zerai shook her head weakly. That's impossible. Taehyuk's expression didn't change. You were the last descendant. The alley felt smaller suddenly, like the walls were closing in around her. But someone stole you, Taehyuk continued, and erased your memories. Zerai staggered slightly. 30 years of life. Built on a lie? Then another thought hit her, hard. Wait, her eyes narrowed. If you knew all this, why didn't you find me earlier? Taehyuk's jaw tightened. Because the people who erased you were very careful. His voice turned cold. But tonight, he glanced toward the street. Your husband's stupidity made you visible again. Zerai let out a slow breath. So, let me get this straight. Her voice was shaky but firm. My husband tried to kill me. Taehyuk nodded. I'm apparently the lost descendant of some ancient healer family. He nodded again. And you're telling me we're engaged because our families made a deal when we were children. Taehyuk looked at her calmly. Yes. Zerai stared at him. Then she laughed. The sound was hollow. Fantastic. Her gaze hardened suddenly. But here's the problem. Taehyuk watched her closely. Zerai lifted her chin. I don't care about ancient families. Her voice carried quiet fury. And I definitely don't care about childhood marriage contracts. Taehyuk remained silent. Zerai's eyes burned with defiance. The only thing I care about right now, her fists clenched, is destroying the man who stole 30 years of my life. For the first time, a faint smile touched Taehyuk's lips. Dark, dangerous. Good. Zerai frowned. What? Taehyuk stepped closer, close enough that his voice became a quiet whisper. Because according to the law, he said, you're dead. Zerai felt a chill run down her spine. Taehyuk's eyes gleamed slightly in the dim alley light. And dead people, he continued, are very hard to kill. Zerai stared at him. Something shifted inside her. For the first time since waking up from the coma, hope. Cold, sharp, dangerous. What are you suggesting? Taehyuk held out his hand. Come with me. Zerai hesitated. Why should I trust you? Taehyuk looked at the jade pendant resting against her chest. Then he met her eyes again. Because, he said quietly, I've been waiting 22 years to bring you home. Zerai's heart skipped. Before she could respond, Taehyuk's phone vibrated. He glanced at the screen. His expression changed instantly. Cold, murderous. Zerai noticed. What is it? Taehyuk slowly lowered the phone. Your husband, he said. Zerai's stomach twisted. What about him? Taehyuk's voice dropped into something terrifying. No, he just announced a reward. Zerai frowned. A reward? Taehyuk looked straight into her eyes. For proof that you're truly dead. Silence filled the alley. Then Zerai whispered, How much? Taehyuk's lips curved slightly. Enough, he said, that half of Seoul will start hunting you tonight. Half of Seoul would be hunting her. The words hung in the air long after Kwon Taehyuk said them. Zerai and Kiruka Adeyemi stood in the dim alley, her breath coming slowly now, but her mind racing faster than it ever had in her entire life. 30 years of marriage, 30 years of loyalty, and now a bounty on her head. Her husband truly intended to erase her existence. Zerai slowly lifted her gaze to Taehyuk. His expression was calm, too calm, as if chaos and death were simply another part of the weather. You're serious, she said quietly. Taehyuk nodded once. Han Ji-soo has money, influence, connections. His eyes hardened slightly, and desperation makes people reckless. Zerai felt something hot rise in her chest. Reckless? She repeated. Her voice trembled with anger. He tried to kill me. Taehyuk watched her carefully. Yes. Zerai's fingers curled slowly into fists. Her entire body still ached from the coma, but the pain inside her chest burned far hotter than anything physical. 30 years. She remembered the nights she stayed awake helping him draft business proposals, the sacrifices, the trust she gave him without hesitation, and now, a reward for her death. Zerai's jaw tightened. Then I guess I don't have much choice. Taehyuk tilted his head slightly. About what? She stepped closer, and the defiance in her eyes burned brighter now. About taking your offer. Taehyuk's gaze darkened slightly. Coming with you? Zerai nodded. Yes. For a moment, neither of them moved. The wind whispered through the alley again, carrying distant city sounds with it. Then Taehyuk turned. Good. He began walking toward the black cars waiting at the end of the street. Zerai followed, not because she trusted him, but because right now he was the only person who didn't want her dead. The ride through Seoul was silent. Zerai sat in the back seat of the sleek black sedan, watching the city lights blur past the window. The life she knew was gone. Her home, her company, her name, all erased with a single declaration of death. Across from her, Taehyuk sat with the same quiet composure. Not he hadn't spoken since they entered the car, yet his presence filled the entire space, commanding, controlled, dangerous. Finally, Zerai broke the silence. So what happens now? Taehyuk looked at her. Now, he said calmly, you disappear. Zerai frowned. I thought I already did. Not completely. He leaned slightly forward. Right now, the government still believes Zerai Adebayo is dead. Because she is, Zerai muttered bitterly. Taehyuk ignored the comment. But if someone proves you're alive, he continued, your husband will reclaim everything you built. Zerai's chest tightened. Everything. Her company, her research, her family's legacy. Gone. And you? She asked quietly. What do you gain from helping me? Taehyuk's gaze lingered on her pendant again. A promise, he said simply. Zerai frowned. What promise? He didn't answer. The car turned off the main road. The towering buildings of Seoul faded behind them. Soon they arrived at a massive steel gate guarded by armed men. The gates opened immediately when the car approached. Zerai's eyebrows lifted slightly. Impressive. Taehyuk didn't react. The car drove into a sprawling estate hidden behind thick walls and dense trees. The house itself looked more like a fortress than a home. Zerai stepped out of the car slowly. Her body still felt weak. Taehyuk noticed. Without a word, he steadied her arm. His touch was firm but gentle. Zerai glanced at him briefly, then pulled away. I'm fine. Taehyuk didn't argue. Inside the house, the atmosphere changed instantly. Men and women moved through the halls with quiet efficiency. Every one of them bowed slightly when Taehyuk passed. Respect, fear, both. Zerai noticed the subtle glances they gave her too. Curious, confused, as if they were trying to figure out who she was. Taehyuk stopped in front of a large door. This room is yours for now. He opened it. Zerai stepped inside. The room was spacious but simple. A bed, a desk, a large window overlooking the city lights. She exhaled slowly. It felt unreal. Hours ago, she had been lying in a hospital bed. Now she was hiding in the home of Korea's most dangerous man. Taehyuk remained by the door. We start tomorrow, he said. Start what? Erasing Zerai Adebayo. Zerai turned to face him, and replacing her with... Taehyuk studied her carefully. Someone stronger. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Is that supposed to be encouraging? It's the truth. Silence stretched between them. Then Zerai asked the question that had been circling her mind all night. Why are you really helping me? Taehyuk didn't hesitate. Because you belong here. Zerai frowned. With the Mafia? With me. Her heartbeat skipped, but she quickly pushed the thought aside. You don't even know me. Taehyuk's expression remained unreadable. I know enough. Zerai crossed her arms. Like what? His eyes flickered briefly toward the jade pendant again. That your family's bloodline carries something rare. Zerai sighed. You mean the healer story? Taehyuk nodded. It's not a story. She shook her head. I've spent 30 years studying medicine and herbal treatments. Her voice softened slightly. No, but I'm not some mythical healer. Taehyuk didn't argue. Instead, he asked quietly, then why did the doctors say your organs were failing? Zerai blinked. And yet you woke up. She froze. The memory surfaced suddenly. The burning sensation in her veins earlier. The strange warmth from the pendant. Zerai pushed the thought away quickly. That's just medical recovery. Taehyuk's gaze lingered on her, but he didn't press further. Rest tonight, he said. We'll talk tomorrow. He turned to leave, but Zerai stopped him. Taehyuk. He paused. Yes? Her voice softened slightly. Thank you. For saving her. For giving her a chance to fight back. Taehyuk looked at her over his shoulder. Something unreadable flickered in his eyes. You don't need to thank me. Why? His voice was quiet. And because protecting you, he hesitated for the first time since they met, was always my responsibility. Then he left. Zerai stood alone in the room. The silence felt heavy. She slowly walked toward the window. Seoul glittered beneath the night sky. A city full of people who believed she no longer existed. Her fingers touched the jade pendant. Who were you? She whispered to herself. Her past, her family, her forgotten childhood, all mysteries. But one thing was clear. Han Ji-soo had made a mistake, a fatal one. He had tried to bury her alive, and now Zerai Adebayo was no longer the woman he remembered. She whispered into the night, I'm coming for everything you stole. Behind the closed door, Taehyuk stood silently in the hallway. He had heard every word. His expression darkened slightly. One of his men approached cautiously. Boss, Taehyuk didn't turn. Yes? We investigated Han Ji-soo further. And? The man hesitated. Your suspicion was correct. Taehyuk finally looked at him. What suspicion? The man swallowed. Han Ji-soo didn't just declare her dead for the insurance money. Taehyuk's eyes narrowed. Then why? The man handed him a file. Because someone else paid him to do it. Taehyuk opened the file. His gaze hardened instantly. The name inside made his blood run cold. A name he hadn't heard in years. A name connected to the massacre of Zerai's family. Taehyuk closed the file slowly. Inside the room, Zerai still stared at the city lights, unaware. And for the first time since finding her, Taehyuk realized something terrifying. The people hunting Zerai tonight were the same monsters who destroyed her family 22 years ago. And they had just discovered one thing. The last descendant of the ancient healer bloodline was alive. The ballroom glittered with power. Crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceiling of the Lotus Crown Hotel, scattering golden light across polished marble floors. Laughter echoed across the hall as politicians, investors, scientists, and corporate elites raised their glasses in celebration. At the center of it all stood Han Ji-soo, alive, wealthy, triumphant. A glass of expensive champagne rested loosely in his hand as he laughed with the executives of Lotus Biotech, the front company secretly tied to the Black Lotus Society. To new beginnings, Ji-soo said smoothly, raising his glass. The investors applauded. Beside him stood a younger woman wrapped in diamonds and silk, his new wife. Her manicured hand clung to his arm possessively. Darling, she whispered sweetly, you've built something incredible. Ji-soo smiled. Yes, he had. 30 years of marriage had been useful. But now that burden was gone. The insurance money had come through. The properties were sold. The past buried. His dead wife was nothing but a memory now. Or so he thought. Across the street, a black car idled silently. Inside, Zerai Adebayo watched the building. Her pulse beat steadily in her ears. The Lotus Crown Hotel, the place where her husband celebrated his new empire, the place where the world believed she would never appear again. Beside her, Kwon Tae-hyuk adjusted the cuff of his dark suit. "You don't have to do this tonight," he said calmly. Now Zerai didn't look at him. "Yes, I do." Snow drifted softly across the city outside the car windows. Her jade pendant rested against her chest, warm against her skin. Alive. Tae-hyuk studied her quietly. "You understand what happens once you walk in there." Zerai finally turned toward him. Her expression was calm. Too calm. "He tried to erase me," she said. Her voice was quiet but sharp. "He erased 30 years of my life in one insurance claim." Tae-hyuk didn't interrupt. "He sent men to kill me when I woke up." Her fingers slowly curled. "So, tonight," her eyes hardened. "I return the favor." Tae-hyuk watched her carefully. Then he nodded once. "Jun." The driver's voice came from the front seat. "Yes, boss." "Clear the perimeter." Jun responded instantly. "Our men are already inside." Zerai blinked slightly. "Now, you have people inside the hotel?" Tae-hyuk raised an eyebrow. "I told you I was patient." She studied him. "You've been planning this." "For years." Something about the quiet certainty in his voice made her chest tighten. Before she could ask, Jun spoke again. "Boss." Tae-hyuk looked up. "What is it?" Jun hesitated. "There are other groups moving tonight." Tae-hyuk's eyes narrowed. "Black Lotus?" "Yes." Zerai exhaled slowly. "Good." Tae-hyuk glanced at her. "You're not worried." She opened the car door. "I stopped being worried the moment my husband buried me alive." The cold Seoul air rushed in. Tae-hyuk stepped out beside her. Together they walked toward the glowing hotel entrance. Inside the ballroom, music played softly. Executives toasted their glasses. And Han Ji-soo continued smiling like a man who had won everything. Then the doors opened. The music faltered slightly as guests turned. A woman stepped inside. She wore a simple black dress, elegant, understated, but what froze the entire room was her face. Han Ji-soo's glass slipped from his hand. Champagne shattered across the marble floor. The woman walked forward slowly. Her heels echoed across the silent hall, each step deliberate, each step inevitable. Her dark eyes never left him. The room held its breath. Han Ji-soo's face drained of color. "No," he whispered. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. He had seen the body, signed the documents, collected the insurance, buried the coffin. The woman stopped 10 steps away from him. Then she spoke. "Hello, Ji-soo." Her voice carried calmly across the ballroom. Now every guest turned toward them. The young wife beside Ji-soo frowned. "Who is this?" But Ji-soo couldn't answer. His lips trembled. Zerai? She tilted her head slightly. A faint smile touched her lips. "Yes." The room erupted in whispers. That name was impossible, because everyone in the industry knew Zerai Han was dead. The young wife looked between them in confusion. "Ji-soo, what is she talking about?" Zerai's eyes shifted toward the woman, studying her, calm, cold. "You must be the replacement." The woman's face reddened. "How dare!" Ji-soo suddenly grabbed her arm. "Be quiet." His voice shook. His eyes never left Zerai. "You..." His breathing grew uneven. "You died." Zerai laughed softly. The sound made several guests shift uncomfortably. "Did I?" Ji-soo took a step back. Fear crept into his expression. I saw your body." "Did you?" Her voice sharpened slightly. "Or did you simply sign the papers without looking too closely?" The guests exchanged nervous glances. Something was very wrong. Jisoo's chest rose and fell rapidly. "You should be dead." Zerai's eyes burned. "Yes." Her voice dropped dangerously. That was the plan. Silence swallowed the room. Then a new voice spoke calmly from the entrance. She survived. Every head turned. Kwon Tae-hyuk stepped into the ballroom. Tall, cold, terrifyingly composed. The air shifted instantly, because everyone in Seoul's underworld knew that face. The king of the underworld had just walked into a corporate celebration. Executives stepped back instinctively. Jisoo's expression twisted. Kwon Taehyuk. Taehyuk walked slowly toward Zerai. His gaze moved briefly across the room, calculating, watching. Then he stopped beside her. You should have finished the job properly, he said calmly to Jisoo. The words sent a ripple of tension through the guests. Jisoo clenched his jaw. This has nothing to do with you. Taehyuk's eyebrow lifted slightly. On the contrary. His hand moved gently toward Zerai's shoulder. She has everything to do with me. The young wife's voice trembled. What is happening? But before anyone could answer, the ballroom lights suddenly flickered. Once, twice. Then the windows exploded inward. Gunshots erupted. Guests screamed. Masked figures in black flooded into the ballroom. Black Lotus agents. Taehyuk's expression didn't change. I was wondering when they'd arrive. Zerai's heart pounded as chaos erupted. Gunfire echoed across the hall. Tables flipped. People ran. Jisoo ducked behind a pillar, dragging his new wife with him. Zerai turned sharply. They're here for me. Taehyuk pulled her behind him. They're here for the bloodline. More agents stormed in. But suddenly Taehyuk's own men appeared from every corner of the ballroom. Gunfire exploded from both sides. The celebration transformed into a battlefield. In the chaos, high above the ballroom, on the second-floor balcony, a tall man watched quietly. The mysterious shadow figure. His eyes followed Zerai carefully. And for the first time, he smiled. Very good, he murmured, because the heir of the ancient healer clan had just stepped into the war waiting for her. Below, Zerai stood beside Taehyuk as bullets tore through the hall. Now her husband stared at her in horror from across the room, alive, unbroken, and very much back from the dead. Taehyuk leaned closer to her, his voice low. This is where things get complicated. Zerai stared at the battlefield around them. Then she smiled slowly. Good. Her eyes burned with defiance. I was starting to get bored. And somewhere in the shadows, the mysterious watcher whispered to himself, the heir has finally returned. The real war had begun. Gunfire shattered the elegance of the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers trembled as bullets tore through marble pillars. Screams filled the once celebratory hall as guests scattered in every direction. Tables overturned. Champagne bottles shattered. Smoke filled the air. At the center of the chaos stood Zerai Adebayo. For a moment, everything felt strangely slow. On her eyes followed the masked figures storming through the broken windows. Black clothing, Lotus insignia stitched faintly on their sleeves. Black Lotus Society, the same organization that had hunted her family decades ago. The same group now trying to finish what they started. Stay behind me. The calm command came from Kwon Taehyuk. He stepped forward, placing himself between Zerai and the approaching gunmen. The movement was so natural, it almost looked instinctive. Two Black Lotus agents rushed toward them. Taehyuk moved before they could raise their weapons. His hand shot out. The first man's wrist twisted sharply. A gun clattered to the floor. The second man barely had time to react before Taehyuk's elbow struck his throat. The man collapsed instantly. Taehyuk kicked the fallen gun across the floor toward one of his guards. His voice remained completely steady. Secure the exits. Yes, boss. More of Taehyuk's men flooded into the ballroom. The firefight intensified. Across the hall, Han Jisoo crouched behind a marble pillar, his face pale with terror. His new wife clung to him. What is happening? She cried. Jisoo barely heard her. His eyes were fixed on Zerai, the woman he had buried, the woman who now stood in the middle of a war. Alive. Impossible. How? He whispered. A sudden explosion of gunfire forced him lower behind the pillar. A Black Lotus agent fell nearby. Blood spread across the floor. Jisoo's breathing grew frantic. Everything had gone wrong. This night was supposed to cement his power. Instead, the past had come back to destroy him. Meanwhile, near the center of the ballroom, Zerai's pulse thundered in her ears. The jade pendant against her chest had grown hotter, unnaturally warm. She pressed her fingers against it. What is this? Another Black Lotus agent rushed toward her. Before she could react, Taehyuk stepped forward and fired once. The man dropped instantly. Taehyuk turned to her. Are you hurt? Zerai shook her head slowly. No. But something inside her was changing. Her heartbeat felt different, stronger, faster. Memories flickered across her mind like broken glass. A courtyard filled with medicinal herbs. Ancient scrolls spread across a wooden table. A woman's voice teaching her the secrets of healing. And blood. So much blood. Zerai staggered slightly. Taehyuk caught her arm. Zerai? Her breathing quickened. My head. The pendant burned hotter. Then suddenly another memory crashed through her mind. Flames consuming a massive estate. Men in black robes slaughtering healers. Children screaming. And a symbol carved into the gates. A black lotus flower. Zerai gasped. Her knees almost buckled. Taehyuk's grip tightened. Look at me. She lifted her eyes to him. Something had changed in them. Something ancient. Taehyuk recognized it immediately. His voice lowered. It's happening. Zerai blinked. What is? The bloodline. Another gunshot rang out across the ballroom. One of Taehyuk's guards fell, clutching his shoulder. Zerai's gaze shifted instantly. Without thinking, she rushed forward. Taehyuk followed. The wounded guard groaned as blood soaked through his sleeve. Boss, I'm fine. But Zerai knelt beside him. Her hands moved instinctively, pressing against the wound. Something warm flowed through her palms. A faint green glow flickered between her fingers. The guard froze. The bleeding slowed, then stopped. The surrounding fighters stared in shock. Taehyuk's eyes darkened. It was exactly as he remembered from childhood, the legendary healer bloodline. Zerai pulled her hands back slowly. The guard stared at his arm. It's closed. Zerai stared at her own hands. What did I just do? Before Taehyuk could answer, a slow clap echoed from above. Everyone's attention snapped upward. Standing on the second-floor balcony was the mysterious shadow man. Tall, still, watching everything unfold. Zerai's eyes narrowed. You. The man smiled faintly. So you remember me. Taehyuk's voice turned cold. Now, identify yourself. The man ignored him. His eyes remained fixed on Zerai. 22 years. His voice carried across the ballroom. That's how long the world believed the last healer heir was dead. Zerai stepped forward. Who are you? The man tilted his head slightly. Someone who has been waiting. Taehyuk's men raised their weapons toward the balcony. The man didn't seem concerned. Instead, he stepped closer to the railing. Moonlight spilled across his face. Zerai's breath caught. He wasn't Korean. His features were African, sharp, regal, and strangely familiar. My name, he said calmly, is Zerai Adebayo. Zerai's heart stopped. The surname hit her like lightning. Adebayo. The man's gaze softened slightly. Yes. He looked directly into her eyes. I am your uncle. The ballroom fell into stunned silence. Zerai shook her head slowly. No. Adeyinka's expression didn't change. You were 5 years old the last time you saw me. Her mind spun. That's impossible. I survived the massacre. Zerai's voice trembled. My family died. Adeyinka's eyes hardened. Most of them did. His gaze shifted briefly toward the Black Lotus agents still fighting Taehyuk's men. They hunted us across continents. Zerai's chest tightened painfully. Then why didn't you come for me? Adeyinka's answer was cold. Because you needed to grow strong first. Her anger flared. You watched me suffer. Yes. The blunt admission stunned her. I watched you survive, he corrected. Taehyuk stepped forward. That's enough. Adeyinka finally looked at him. A recognition flashed in his eyes. Kwon Taehyuk. Taehyuk's voice was ice. You've been following her. For years. Taehyuk's jaw tightened. You exposed her to Black Lotus. Adeyinka nodded calmly. Yes. Zerai turned toward him in shock. You what? Adeyinka's voice remained steady. The heir of the healer clan cannot hide forever. His gaze sharpened. She must face the war that destroyed our bloodline. Zerai clenched her fists. You started this battle. Adeyinka's smile was faint. No. His voice darkened. I simply revealed the battlefield. Suddenly, more Black Lotus agents stormed into the ballroom. Dozens. The fight intensified again. Taehyuk glanced around quickly. We're leaving. Zerai hesitated, but Adeyinka spoke again. No, your husband is trying to escape. Zerai's head snapped toward the side exit. Han Ji-soo was indeed slipping toward the back door with his terrified new wife. Her eyes burned with fury. No. Taehyuk caught her arm. Zerai. But she pulled away. Her voice carried quiet, deadly defiance. He buried me. Her gaze locked onto Jisoo's retreating figure. Tonight, she stepped forward. I make sure he never forgets that mistake. And across the battlefield, Han Ji-soo turned around, only to see the woman he thought he killed walking toward him through smoke and gunfire, alive, unstoppable, and filled with vengeance. The real nightmare had just begun. Chapter 11. The night the healers fell. Sirens wailed outside the Lotus Crown Hotel. Red and blue lights flashed against the glass walls as police vehicles surrounded the building. Reporters had already begun gathering outside the barricades, cameras flashing as news of the violent attacks spread across Seoul. Inside the service hallway, the air felt heavy. Han Ji-soo sat slumped against the wall, clutching his bleeding shoulder while two of Taehyuk's men restrained him. His empire was collapsing around him, his secrets exposed, and the woman he betrayed stood alive before him. But Zerai no longer looked at him. Her attention was on Adeyinka Adebayo, her uncle, the man she thought had died with the rest of her family. Her voice came out steady, but something deeper trembled beneath it. You said the man who destroyed my family is still alive. Adeyinka nodded slowly. Yes. Taehyuk's eyes remained sharp. And you waited until now to tell her? Adeyinka didn't flinch. She needed to awaken her bloodline first. Zerai's jaw tightened. You keep talking about this bloodline. Her fingers brushed the jade pendant resting against her chest. Tell me everything. The hallway fell quiet. Even the guards seemed to lean in slightly. Adeyinka exhaled slowly. The healer clan wasn't just a family of doctors. His voice carried the weight of old history. For centuries, we were guardians of knowledge older than most civilizations. Zerai listened without moving. Ancient medical techniques, energy healing, herbal sciences lost to modern medicine. His gaze darkened. Powerful enough that kings once protected our clan. Taehyuk crossed his arms. And powerful enough that someone wanted it wiped out. Adeyinka nodded. Yes. Zerai's chest tightened. Black Lotus. Partly. Her eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Adeyinka hesitated. Then he spoke quietly. The Black Lotus Society are not the true enemy. The words landed like thunder. Taehyuk's gaze sharpened instantly. Explain. Adeyinka looked directly at Zerai. They are only the sword. Her heart skipped. The real enemy, his voice lowered, is the man who forged that sword. Zerai whispered, Who? Adeyinka's eyes hardened. Chairman Seo Kang-jin. The name meant nothing to her. But Taehyuk stiffened slightly. Zerai noticed immediately. You know him. Taehyuk's voice was controlled. Everyone in Seoul knows him. Han Ji-soo suddenly laughed weakly from the floor. You fools! Blood dripped down his arm as he spoke. No, you have no idea who you're dealing with. Zerai turned toward him slowly. Then enlighten us. Jisoo coughed painfully. Seo Kang-jin built half the pharmaceutical empire in Asia. His eyes gleamed with bitter amusement. He funds hospitals, medical research, government programs. Zerai's stomach twisted. And secretly controls Black Lotus. Jisoo smiled darkly. Yes. Adeyinka continued quietly. 22 years ago, he discovered the healer clan's existence. Zerai's pulse quickened. He wanted our knowledge. Her throat tightened. And when we refused, Adeyinka's eyes darkened. He ordered the massacre. Fragments of memories burst through Zerai's mind again. Fire, screams, blood on white robes, children running through burning halls. Her breathing grew uneven. Taehyuk stepped closer instinctively. You don't have to force the memories. But Zerai shook her head. No. Her voice trembled. I need to remember. Adeyinka watched her carefully. That night your parents hid you. Her fingers tightened around the pendant. This pendant, he continued softly, was your protection. Zerai swallowed. And you? I stayed behind to fight. His voice held no pride. Most of us died. Taehyuk spoke quietly. But you survived. Yes, Zerai whispered. Then why didn't you come find me? Adeyinka met her gaze. Because someone already had. She blinked. What? Adeyinka turned toward Taehyuk. A faint smile appeared on his face. The boy from the Protector clan. Zerai's heart skipped. Her eyes moved slowly to Taehyuk. You... Taehyuk looked slightly uncomfortable for the first time. No, it wasn't like that. Adeyinka chuckled softly. Oh, it absolutely was. Zerai frowned. What are you talking about? Adeyinka answered gently. The night your clan fell, Taehyuk's father smuggled you out of Korea. Zerai's breath caught. What? Taehyuk finally spoke. My father took you to Nigeria. Her chest tightened painfully. That's how I ended up there. Yes, Adeyinka continued. Your memories were sealed by one of our last healers. Why? To keep you hidden. Zerai stared at Taehyuk. You knew where I was all those years? Taehyuk shook his head. No. My father erased the records. Her voice softened slightly. So, how did you find me again? Taehyuk looked at the jade pendant. The pendant's energy resurfaced when your coma weakened the seal. Zerai felt the warmth against her chest again. And so you came looking? Taehyuk nodded once. Yes. A strange silence settled between them. Then Zerai asked quietly, The marriage contract. Taehyuk's lips curved faintly. That was my father's idea. Did you agree? His eyes held hers steadily. Yes. Zerai blinked. You were a child. I remember you. Her breath caught. A memory flickered. A young boy standing beneath a tree, holding her hand, promising something she couldn't quite hear. Taehyuk continued quietly. You gave me the pendant once. Zerai touched it instinctively. You told me it meant we were connected. Her chest tightened again. Before she could respond, Adeyinka spoke sharply. We don't have much time. Taehyuk's expression hardened. What do you mean? Adeyinka looked toward the shattered ballroom doors. Seo Kangjin already knows she's alive. Zerai felt the weight of those words settle over her. And? Adeyinka's voice dropped. He's coming. Taehyuk's eyes darkened. Here? Yes. Jisoo laughed weakly again. You think he'll let any of you live now? Zerai slowly turned toward him. Her eyes burned with cold determination. Good. Taehyuk glanced at her. Good? Zerai's voice carried quiet steel. I've been running from ghosts for 30 years. Her fingers tightened around the jade pendant. I think it's time the ghosts faced me instead. Outside the hotel, a long line of black luxury vehicles rolled toward the entrance. The doors opened, and Chairman Seo Kangjin stepped out. The man who destroyed the Healer clan. The man who had hunted Zerai's bloodline for decades. And now, the woman he thought was dead had returned. The final battle was about to begin. The sirens outside the Lotus Crown Hotel had not stopped. Police cars lined the street. Reporters crowded behind barricades. Camera flashes burst like lightning in the winter night. But suddenly, the noise began to fade. Not because the chaos had ended, because something far more powerful had arrived. A convoy of black luxury vehicles rolled slowly to a stop at the hotel entrance. The doors opened. Men in dark suits stepped out first. Dozens of them. Silent. Disciplined. Their movements were not those of ordinary bodyguards. They moved like soldiers. Then the rear car door opened. An elderly man stepped out. His silver hair was combed neatly back. His suit was immaculate despite the cold wind sweeping through the street. His presence alone seemed to quiet the crowd. Even the police officers unconsciously stepped aside. Because this man wasn't just powerful. He was untouchable. Chairman Seo Kang-jin, the man who controlled half of Asia's pharmaceutical empire, and the man who had secretly built the Black Lotus Society into a global shadow organization. He adjusted his gloves calmly. Then he walked toward the hotel entrance. "Prepare the elevator," he said quietly. One of his aides bowed immediately. "Yes, Chairman." Inside the hotel, tension filled the service hallway. Zerai Adebayo felt the moment before anyone spoke. A strange coldness slid down her spine. Her jade pendant pulsed against her chest. She whispered softly, "He's here." Taehyuk's gaze sharpened. "You can feel him?" Zerai nodded slowly. "Yes." Adeyinka exhaled quietly. "Nah, that pendant carries the energy of your ancestors." Her fingers tightened around it. "And it's reacting to him." Taehyuk checked his watch. "Then we have minutes at most." Behind them, Han Ji-soo laughed weakly again from the floor. "You're all dead." Blood still seeped through his sleeve, but his voice carried twisted satisfaction. "You don't understand, Seo Kang-jin." Zerai looked down at him. "You're right." Her eyes hardened. "I don't." She crouched slowly in front of him. "But I understand you." Jisoo flinched slightly. "You used me." Her voice remained steady. 30 years of marriage. 30 years of loyalty. She tilted her head slightly. "And all you saw was money." Jisoo's face twisted. "You would have died anyway." Zerai's expression didn't change. "But I didn't." She stood again calmly. "And that's the problem, isn't it?" Footsteps suddenly echoed from the far end of the hallway. Slow, confident, unhurried. Every guard in the corridor immediately raised their weapons. But the approaching man did not stop. The hallway lights flickered as Chairman Seo Kang-jin stepped into view. He walked with a cane, though it looked more like a symbol of authority than a necessity. His sharp eyes moved across the hallway, taking in everything. The guards, the blood, Han Ji-soo on the floor, then finally, Zerai. The moment their eyes met, the jade pendant burned hot against her chest. Seo Kang-jin smiled faintly. "So." His voice was smooth. "After 22 years." He stepped closer. "The last healer has finally returned." The hallway fell silent. Zerai studied him carefully. "No, you destroyed my family." Seo Kang-jin tilted his head. "I liberated their knowledge." Adeyinka's voice snapped. "You slaughtered children." Seo Kang-jin looked at him calmly. "And yet here you stand." His eyes returned to Zerai. "You must be disappointed." Zerai's voice was ice. "Why would I be?" "Because the world has already moved on." He gestured slightly around the hallway. "Your ancient clan, your sacred traditions, all irrelevant now." Zerai stepped forward slowly. "You murdered them." Seo Kang-jin's expression remained composed. "They refused progress." Taehyuk's voice cut in coldly. "They refused to hand you their power." Seo Kang-jin looked at him for the first time. "Kwon Taehyuk." His smile returned slightly. "The Protector clan's last heir." Taehyuk didn't move. "Not you've been expecting me." Seo Kang-jin nodded. "Of course." His eyes moved back to Zerai. "You see, child." His voice softened almost kindly. "Your bloodline is valuable." Zerai's fingers curled. "You mean useful." Seo Kang-jin didn't deny it. "I built an empire using fragments of your clan's medical techniques." His smile widened slightly. "Imagine what I could do with the last true heir." Zerai felt anger rise inside her chest. "You think I would help you?" Seo Kang-jin shrugged. "You will." Taehyuk stepped forward instantly. "No." Seo Kang-jin's guards raised their guns. But Taehyuk didn't flinch. Seo Kang-jin sighed. "You're still clinging to old promises." Taehyuk's voice lowered dangerously. "I protect what belongs to my clan." Seo Kang-jin looked almost amused. And what exactly belongs to you?" Taehyuk answered without hesitation. "Her." The single word echoed through the hallway. Zerai blinked slightly. Seo Kang-jin chuckled. "How romantic." Then his expression hardened. "But irrelevant." He lifted a finger slightly. At once, Black Lotus agents stepped forward from behind him. Dozens, weapons ready. The hallway instantly became a battlefield again. Taehyuk's guards moved into formation. Adeyinka stepped beside Zerai. "Are you ready?" Her pulse raced, but her voice was calm. "Yes." The jade pendant glowed faintly again. Seo Kangjin noticed. His eyes sharpened with interest. There it is. The ancient healer energy. Zerai felt it moving through her veins now. Warm, powerful, alive. Seo Kangjin smiled. Magnificent. Zerai lifted her chin. You wanted the healer bloodline." Her eyes burned with defiance. "Come and take it." The hallway exploded into motion. Gunfire erupted. Black Lotus agents rushed forward. Taehyuk moved like lightning. His men followed with ruthless precision. But through the chaos, Seo Kangjin simply watched. Calm, patient. Because he knew something they didn't. The true power of the healer bloodline had not yet awakened. And tonight, he intended to claim it. But he had made one fatal mistake. The woman he had hunted for decades was no longer a frightened child. She was Zerai Adebayo, the healer who had already survived death, and the war would end tomorrow. The hallway was a war zone. Smoke curled from shattered lights. The acrid scent of gunpowder mixed with the faint metallic tang of blood. Yet amidst the chaos, Zerai Adebayo moved with absolute calm, her jade pendant glowing faintly against her chest. Every step, every breath was measured. Seo Kangjin stood at the far end, arms folded, expression unreadable. Around him, the remnants of the Black Lotus Society formed a semicircle, ready to strike. His sharp eyes, dark and calculating, followed her every move. "You've come back for revenge," he said softly. "Do you even know what you're dealing with?" Zerai's gaze didn't waver. Her voice, calm but filled with steel, answered him. "I've been surviving things you can't even imagine. You destroyed my family. You tried to erase me. And yet, here I am, alive, stronger than ever." He chuckled, a low, sinister sound. "Alive, yes. But do you know the power you've inherited? You're nothing without control. You could burn the world with your bloodline and not even understand it." Her hands clenched instinctively, and the pendant pulsed brighter. A warmth spread from her chest down her arms, her fingers tingling. Memories she hadn't known she had ancient chants, healing techniques, even visions of battles long past flashed before her eyes. Adeyinka stepped beside her, calm but commanding. "You can control it. Trust yourself. Your ancestors' strength flows through you." Zerai inhaled sharply, centering herself. The fury, the grief, and the defiance all fused into one clear purpose. She raised her hands, palms open toward Seo Kangjin. Energy, ancient and blinding, rippled outward in golden waves. The agents surrounding Seo Kangjin froze. Guns trembled in their hands. Then the air itself seemed to bend under the invisible force emanating from Zerai. "You underestimated me," she said softly, almost as if savoring the moment. "And now, you'll pay for everything." Seo Kangjin's confident smirk faltered for the first time. He raised a hand, and a wave of his own energy, dark and suffocating, rose to counter her. But it wasn't enough. The light from her pendant flared, brighter, stronger, until it cracked the concrete floor beneath her feet. Taehyuk moved swiftly beside her, his calm, calculated presence a grounding anchor. "Focus," he murmured. "You've survived worse." Zerai's eyes met his. For a fraction of a second, the tension melted into something else. Recognition, trust, and the unspoken bond of shared history. She nodded once, sharply, then turned back to Seo Kangjin. The clash was instantaneous. More waves of energy collided, shaking the hallway. Guards and Black Lotus agents were thrown aside like rag dolls. Glass shattered, metal twisted. Amidst the chaos, Zerai advanced, step by step, unwavering. Seo Kangjin's voice boomed, filled with rage. "You dare challenge me? I am your end." Zerai's voice cut through the turmoil, clear and precise. "No, you are the end of what you were allowed to be. I am the beginning." She raised the pendant high, and in that instant, her power fully awakened. A golden pulse exploded outward, a wave of ancestral energy that shattered the remaining agents' weapons, and sent Seo Kang-jin staggering backward. The air vibrated, charged with the echoes of generations past. Taehyuk moved forward, catching her as she stumbled slightly from the intensity of her own power. His hand on her back was grounding, reassuring. "You've got this," he said softly. Seo Kang-jin tried to stand, but the energy was relentless. He clutched his chest as the pendant's aura wrapped around him, unraveling every ill-gotten advantage he had built. His empire, his secret society, his power all crumbled in an instant, leaving only the man who had slaughtered a family, now powerless before the last heir of the Healer clan. He fell to his knees. "You can't," he gasped. Zerai's voice was calm, almost serene. "This is what happens when you play with life as if it belongs to you. You failed to understand that power without honor is nothing." Adeyinka stepped forward, eyes scanning the aftermath. "The Healer bloodline endures. It always does." Seo Kang-jin's last words were a whisper, and barely audible. "You have no idea what you've unleashed." Zerai's fingers brushed her pendant. She didn't reply. The weight of her ancestors, of her family, of 30 years of betrayal, had been settled. Han Ji-soo, still bleeding and restrained, looked at her in horror. "What will you do with me?" he stammered. Her eyes, now calm but burning with righteous fury, met his. "You wanted me dead. You wanted my life erased. Now you'll face justice. No more mercy." She turned to Taehyuk. Their eyes met for the first time without masks, without roles, just two people who had endured and survived unimaginable things. "You saved me," she said quietly. "I've always protected you," he replied softly, "even when you didn't know it." Zerai smiled faintly, a slow, genuine smile that reached her eyes. "And now, I'm alive, truly alive. With my family's legacy, with you." The chaos around them began to settle. Black Lotus agents either fled or were incapacitated. Police stormed in moments later, ready to take Seo Kang-jin and the surviving conspirators into custody. Zerai stood tall, her jade pendant glowing faintly against her chest. Adeyinka approached, pride and relief written across his face. "You did it," he said simply. Zerai exhaled slowly, the tension leaving her body. "We did it," she corrected. Taehyuk moved closer, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. His voice, low and intimate, carried a promise. "This isn't the end. It's just the beginning for us." Zerai's heart fluttered. After 30 years of betrayal, 30 years of running, and decades of lost memories, she finally allowed herself to believe. She reached for his hand, or in their fingers intertwined naturally, a silent vow of trust, partnership, and something far deeper love that had endured time, separation, and fate itself. The city outside was still alive with chaos, sirens, and flashing lights, but inside the hotel, in that hallway, Zerai Adebayo, the healer who had returned from death, stood triumphant. The bloodline was restored, justice had been served, and for the first time in decades, she allowed herself to hope, to breathe, and to love. The jade pendant pulsed gently, a heartbeat in tune with hers, and beside her, Taehyuk's presence was steady, unshakable. The war was over. She spent 30 years being someone else's version of herself, and the moment she stopped, the world couldn't hold her. Sit with that.